All right, thank you for staying tuned. Tonight, as we promised in our discussion, we'll be talking to Tony Kienje, who is a governance expert, looking into the issue of BBI and the aspect of civic education. We've seen leaders come up to say that the civic education when it comes to BBI has somewhat been politicized, and Mr. Kienje here is here to tell us more concerning that. Welcome, Mr. Kienje.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me. First and foremost, let me begin by saying it has not been politicized. It's only that they are following due process. And a referendum being in play, it means that it is a political process. So you cannot avoid politics, in as much as civic education and politics are kind of two sides of the same coin.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Now, as you've started from that point, the main concern has been that on Friday, was it Friday? Yeah, it was on Friday. President Uhuru Kenyatta, it was on Thursday actually last week, when President Uhuru Kenyatta paraded different principals, I shall call them, who include KANU party leader Gideon Moi. We also saw Governor for Kitui, Charity Ngilu, in that particular meeting, and they were said to be key leaders who will popularize BBI across the country. And the question has been that some of the leaders were not in that particular meeting, which raised a concern whether there is really inclusion and whether politics is taking center stage when it comes to the issue of popularizing BBI and civic education on the same.
First and foremost, let us understand that those who are invited have been in the forefront for fighting for BBI from the word go. Therefore, it goes without saying that they were expected to be invited, and not just invited for the sake of it, but invited in their capacity as national leaders, and also in their capacity as political parties leaders. So in that respect alone, we can see that the president is not taking this thing lightly. He's not taking it as his own initiative, but he's all-inclusive, going all out to bring people who are pro-BBI first on board. Because you understand that if you want something, if you want agreement, the first point is to start walking the journey with people of like minds. So that is why you saw the group that was in State House together with the president thanking the members of county assemblies for passing the bill overwhelmingly. You know, the country was painted green, you know.
Sure.
So we can say that it's a good step. And let us remember that one of the tenets of BBI is inclusivity in terms of national leadership.
Sure.
And that is why we are having 3 seats being added at the helm of leadership in our nation and in our state. That is the Prime Minister seat and the 2 Deputy Prime Minister seat. So when you have these national leaders from different ethnicity, from different regions, coming on board together with the president, it is a good show of inclusivity and also unity of the nation, because part of the legacy of His Excellency, the President of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, is to leave a Kenya that is united, a Kenya that will be there for generations to come, in terms of setting the stage for even other African nations to emulate proper governance.
All right. But Mr. Kienje, looking into the 2010 Constitution and the much that was done in terms of civic education, and looking into this particular process, both of them, that was the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. In this, we are amending the 2010 Constitution. Looking at how the 2 processes were handled, don't you think that the process when it comes to the BBI report in the quest of changing the Constitution has somewhat been too much politicized, or are we reading too much into the process of the constitutional change?
Let us first appreciate that the Constitution in itself is both a legal document and a political document.
Sure.
It is a social contract by the people, which the people of a nation bequeath themselves, agreeing on the values, principles, and tenets of governance they want themselves to be governed with. So having the Constitution as both a political document and also a legal document, you cannot negate politics.
in the process.
In the process.
Sure.
Because even governments are creations of politics in themselves. And Kenya being a democratic nation, republic, we are born to have politics take center stage once in a while. And if you can remember, even in our Vision 2030 as a nation, one of the pillars of that vision was a political pillar. And that is why we even had the Constitution of 2010 passed and promulgated on the 27th of August 2010. But the thing that we need to understand is that on the year 2010, it was a new constitution that was coming into play.
Sure.
For now, it is an amendment. It is the first amendment. It doesn't mean that we'll not have other amendments. It is the first amendment. So we may not have a lot of razzmatazz as we had back then in 2010, simply because it's an amendment and not the whole charade, the whole thing coming into play.
All right. Now, the problem has been, and what political leaders who are against the BBI have said is that when it comes to the political lobbying, when you have these 6 leaders, that is Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga. Right now, Raila Odinga is in Taita Taveta. We have seen Gideon Moi in Kabarnet over the weekend. That the political lobbying of this particular process is too much expensive for the common mwananchi. And therefore, they could have sorted another medium of popularizing the BBI, given that even as of now, we don't have the copies. We are hearing the Secretariat team say that campaigns will start next week, but we do not have copies of the BBI. Therefore, Kenyans have sort of read too much into the process in terms of wastage of resources.
If only you could have told me that you don't have a copy. It would have been my first order of business to bring you a copy.
But
even
a majority of Kenyans don't have the copies.
That is debatable. That is debatable. The reason I'm saying this is because even the county assemblies themselves, when they were holding public participation, they had the copies distributed to wananchi. And you remember IEBC had the bill presented to all 47 county assemblies in Kenya. That means even Baringo, that has an issue with passing of BBI and the matter is in court. Even in Baringo, there were copies taken there for the bill. And it was now the matter, it was upon now the MCAs for Baringo, for instance, to make sure now as they do public participation, and that is why even the matter has been taken to court, they distribute even the copies to the wananchi. Why? Because first and foremost, their key responsibility is to the electorate, because they are representatives of the electorate. Other than that, we also have the BBI Secretariat that has printed enough copies. And it is only that they are following due process. The matter of the BBI bill in itself, first and foremost, they had to make sure it was taken to IEBC. Now, after being taken to IEBC, now IEBC, after sorting out the signatures and everything, they take it to the county assemblies. Now, after the county assemblies, they also take it to Parliament, and then Parliament, because it has things that touch on, let's say, Parliament, therefore you need a referendum to change IEBC again to formulate the question. Now, at that particular time, when it reaches the point of now IEBC is formulating a question, and the BBI bill is no longer in the county assembly, and it is no longer in the National Assembly and the Senate, then at that particular time, I'm telling you, you'll even be tired of covering matters BBI, because it will be all system go.
All right.
So right now, they're just following due process. It's a matter of going step by step and not jumping the gun.
All right. Talking about that, but there's something I don't want us to skip. You're saying the issue of Baringo County and the issue of public participation. But public participation has been relative. In fact, in our discussion that we had last week, we have seen some counties, they did not even do some sort of a threshold of what public participation should be. Some went to the extent of publishing the bill in the Gazette, the notice in the Gazette, and that was it for public participation. And therefore that has raised the concern on how MCAs really handled the issue of educating the public, given that they represent the electorate. Some jumped the gun because of the 2 million car grant. Don't you see there were some, gaps there when it comes to how they handled the provision of public participation and even educating the common mwananchi down there?
It's good to differentiate propaganda and real facts. The reason I'm saying this is because the issue of car grants has been used to show that or to create a perception that the MCAs from the word go had no intention of reading the BBI bill itself or even taking it to the public for participation in terms of reviewing the document, but for their own selfish interests, which is not true. The reason I'm saying this is because it is a constitutional mandate that we have public participation, not just for the BBI bill, but any bill that is supposed to be passed by county assemblies. Now, having said that, they were very keen, especially given the kind of attention it had all the way from the top. The MCAs from the different county assemblies were very keen to follow due process. Why were they keen? They did not want a scenario whereby someone could run to court and say this and this did not happen. And that is why I would want to challenge you to tell me one county specifically, just not even two, one county that did not follow due process and where it missed the mark.
All right, you see, the problem has been that when it comes to public participation, there is not really a threshold of how public participation should be done in the counties, and that is why maybe they might have escaped the thought of not really following the procedure. But the question has been that the BBI bill, when it got to the counties, they had 90 days. But some didn't even take a week when it comes to the Luo, the Nyanza region, where is the bedrock of opposition leader Raila Odinga. It took them days, and they had 90 days to go through the bill itself, to understand the bill itself, but the rush that was there was too much. Then came the following week, where we had the Super Tuesday, and ODM leader Raila Odinga promised that on Tuesday, we will have passed the threshold, and that then raised the question of whether really the process was done due to the procedural way of doing things or due to the executive or leaders of the issue of car grants now taking center stage.
Let me remind you that this whole debate, this whole issue of BBI started more than 2 years ago. And in particular, the counties that you've mentioned, the ones from Luo Nyanza, have been in the forefront of championing BBI. And no wonder they had that gusto to pass it. Because it's not something foreign. It's something they had interacted with it before. Because remember, it is a document of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is a document that the people themselves, including members of the county assemblies, went and presented their views. And a report was formulated and even tabled to the president. Now, after the report was handed to the president, you remember it was again taken back to the public for verification, to verify that indeed what the public, including now the MCAs themselves, what they had recommended to be included in the report was there. So in as much as the bill is now contextualized into a legal instrument, that is a bill in itself, it is nothing new. Because for the last 2 years, we have been on that journey as a nation. And that is why it would be very callous to take 90 days to debate something that you have been with and you have seen the journey for the last 2 years. And remember, there are timelines involved. In as much as there were 90 days, you see there's also the issue of now going to parliament, other than going to parliament, IEBC also formulating, and then the public, the civic education, and then the referendum itself, and then the assenting of the bill. So they had to rush to make sure that we also do not take this country into a referendum during an election year.
All right.
Possibly this issue of BBI and the referendum should be through by mid-June in the latest.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the issue of civic education and how best it will be done, because those who are opposing the BBI report have already cocked their guns. Those who are for the BBI have already taken a shield. And therefore, the common man, even before he gets to read the report itself, perception have been laid. This is quite a tribal nation, sorry to say so. So therefore, people have been aligned that this is Mutuwetu. So if he's not supporting the BBI process, we'll not support it. Huyu ni Mutuwetu. If he's supporting the process, we'll support it. Now, how do we demystify the issue of ignorance and the issue of throwing the action to the politicians and taking over the process as the common mwananchi?
First and foremost, let me say that the guns that you see purporting to have been cocked must be smoke guns, going by what happened with the passing of the bill in the 47 counties. Let me tell you, the nation has accepted BBI, and that is a fact. And I'm saying that confidently because I'm yet to see any leader coming out strongly opposing it. They're just using many words to try and circumvent the issue, but they are not outrightly denying it. Why? Because they understand that it is good for the people, and the people of Kenya have accepted it. Having said that, when we come to the matter of public participation and also civic education, let us thank God for BBI. Reason being, one of the issues that was included in the BBI was the matter of citizen education. That includes a comprehensive curriculum of how to train the citizen on his responsibilities in as much as he or she getting to understand his or her rights. Therefore, going forward with BBI being passed, there's so much light. There's so much light because we'll have a more enlightened citizen and a proper framework that the government will have put in place in terms of addressing issues for the citizen, because a key tenet of BBI is also putting the citizen first.
All right. Yeah. Now, we have talked about the referendum being conducted, say, mid-June. Today we had the minority leader in the Senate, James Orengo, who's also the senator, saying that the BBI, the referendum, will be done in June or July, dependent on whether they'll be having budgetary issues or whether they will be having court injunctions going on. And therefore, my question is, given that civic education should be something that is progressive, that you monitor how it's going, whether people in Turkana, in the farthest of Lokicha, have really gotten to understand the process itself, the time frame, is it really too little to make sure that we have seen the progress of all people in the country now getting into participating in the issue of a constitutional change?
Let me say that, first and foremost, let us understand that this is just the First Amendment.
Sure.
Meaning there will be in future a second and even a third amendment, like we've had in other progressive nations, like for instance, even in America. They've had numerous amendments to their constitution. And in as much as civic education is progressive, in terms of this particular amendment, I believe proper mechanisms have been put in place to make sure that every Kenyan is able to understand what this amendment is all about. Reason being, even before the bill was formulated, the two principals championed it in terms of asking the people to come out and give their views. And they themselves presented their views. Other than that, we also have now even politicians who back the document going to their electorate and educating the people. But now we will not just say that because the politicians are educating the masses that have elected them, which we cannot not also discount, because there are those people who are in our nation who would only believe what comes out of the mouth of their leader,
Yeah,
or their political
politicians,
leader.
yeah.
So we cannot also discount the effort of politicians. But having said that, even IEBC itself has a role in terms of educating the masses. And that is why you see every step of the way, even when it was conducting the review of signatures, it was telling the public what was happening. That is part of civic education. So we have many mechanisms, including the BBI Secretariat and other organs of government, like for instance the Ministry of Interior. Reason being, this is also a matter that has the national government interested in terms of when the head of state is championing something, it goes without saying that the government will also take a keen interest into it. So there are matters that are being handled by different agencies to ensure that there's a smooth process. For instance, even the issue of ensuring that there's a budget, because it takes money to do even the referendum. So even Treasury is involved to make sure that they allocate money for the referendum.
All right, but talking about the issue of budget and looking into our economic situation right now, for Kenyans to really embrace the process, the BBI report was based on 9 ethos, which include inclusivity, the issue of devolution, the issue of the national ethos being inculcated, the issue of healing our land. It is really a good report, but even though you're saying that Kenyans have accepted the process, there seems to be a section of Kenyans who are downtrodden due to the economic situation, and therefore some have said, is this amendment really supposed to be handled right now? You have had the proposals of some saying that the referendum and the election should be conducted at the same time due to the issue of budget. IEBC has come out to say they don't have enough budget to conduct a referendum. And now, given that you're a governance expert and looking into the issue of our country at the moment, COVID-19, strike of teachers, nurses here and there, is the timing really right when it comes to a referendum here in the country?
Let me say there has never been a more perfect moment to have an amendment such as now.
Right.
Reason being is that during times of crisis, it is when people are more thoughtful, and they take cognizance of the issues that are play, and the issues that are handled in the BBI are not alien things. There are things that matter to the people of Kenya. There are things that pertain to the people of Kenya. There are things that affect the daily lives of Kenyans. So you should look at BBI on the lens that it is coming to improve the life of the common mwananchi. For instance, the issue of taking more resources to the grassroots, increasing 15% to 35%. The issue of having now the MCAs having Ward Development Fund. The issue of having proper representation in terms of the number of people any particular constituency or MP should be representing. All those matters are there to improve the life of that ordinary Kenyan. Therefore, having said that, we should understand that it is times like this that we need to swallow that bitter pill that is good for our health, which is BBI.
All right. Now, finally, because you're pressed on time, in 1 minute, looking into the process and the overall the way the government is handling the situation right now, looking into the way Kenyans are being inculcated into the process, are we seeing an issue of biasness in terms of making Kenyans be on the forefront? Are we seeing the executive, and by this I mean President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga, taking over the process to the extent of now the common mwananchi are feeling sort of alienated from the process altogether?
To the contrary, no. Reason being, first and foremost, you must understand that these are two individuals who were voted for overwhelmingly by the same Kenyans that we are talking about. So in that right alone, they have they have the capacity to speak on behalf of Kenyans. Yet they did not make it their own affair. Because if it was their own affair, we would not have had the numerous sittings that were held all over the nation in asking Kenyans to take views. But all the same, I would say that we have taken huge steps as a nation. And even at this point, we need, personally, let me even congratulate the president for being elected the chairperson of the East African community. And we also need to appreciate that as a nation, in terms of geopolitics, we are miles ahead. And our president is surely leading us in the right direction.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony Kienji, for making time and giving us a perspective on what we are seeing in terms of civic education. Of course, some might argue differently because in Kenya it is a democracy and people get to choose what route they want to take. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that has been Mr. Tony Kienji giving us a perspective concerning the issue of civic education here in the country, what is being done, what's not being done. You've heard it from him. Now, we are taking a break. We'll be back with more. Do stay tuned.